It is my favorite interview of the year when it comes to Department of Ag, Trade, Consumer. No, I like talking with you guys all the time. But the top 10, it's here. It's here. It's here. And come to love it because it's a great insight of what's happened in the past year. Kind of gives us some data moving forward into the new year. But more importantly, you guys are listening and you guys are taking notes and here to provide some great information. So, Michael, welcome back to the show. Tell us about what is the top 10 consumer complaints list all about?
Yeah, this is an exciting time of the year for us. So it gives us an opportunity to kind of show and illustrate all of the different areas that we can help, but then also provides a little bit of data and some numbers behind what are the most common complaints that we receive. And so it's not really us trying to illustrate what are the biggest problems. It's also an opportunity to really show I guess explain what DATCP does and how they can help. Because a lot of these categories, consumers might not even realize DATCP can help with. And as you'll see, a lot of them have some big numbers behind them.
Yeah, and what I really need is a playbook here of showing all of the top tens in like the last 5 years since we've been working with you guys, because it'd be interesting to see how those trends go. Another topic for another day. We are going to start at number 10 and go to number 1. So number 10 is
Auto sales, both new and used. And this is a unique one because we work very closely with the Department of Transportation to kind of have dual authority here. But what's interesting is that auto sales is most often regulated by the Department of Transportation. For us here at DATCP, what we handle is those price promotions, you know, those mailers that you get that have the scratch off and say that you won something or a key got to come in and start the car. We handle those, but the other part, I think that is even more voluminous in the areas now is the auto warranty cards. You know, you're getting those calls or those texts, those little postcard that says, hey, your service contract or your warranty's expired. And that's something that we help out. This past year, we got a couple real large settlements and we're hoping to try and put a dent in that industry. And it all ties with new and used auto sales.
Number 9 comes in at one that I can't recall seeing here, but specifically it comes in with a caveat.
Well, you are correct. You don't recall seeing it on here because it's never been on the list. And this is a new one. It's home furnishings and furniture restoration. And this one deals primarily with kind of the rehabbing old furniture. And it also deals with kind of an uptick that we're seeing in consignment. A lot of furniture consignment, a lot of these businesses that are saying, hey, let us take that in and either restore it for you or offer it for sale. And of course, it's easy because you thought about just throwing it away or selling it yourself. And all you got to do is set it up. And what happened is a lot of our complaints in this category had to do with the timelines really not being met. You're seeing that they promised the restoration would be 3 months, and in fact, it's 6 or 9 months. And then also seeing really kind of the quality of work that's being done. They didn't really think that it met what the expectations were. And then sometimes really the refund policies, you know, the work didn't get done or they're not getting their property back at all, or they're not getting their money back. You know, similar to other areas, but unique. We've seen similar complaints in other industries, but very unique for this one in 2022.
Number 8, too, health and medical devices and products coming in as well into the top 10.
This is a new one, and this is a very unique because there's one particular business that accounts for over 2/3 of the number of complaints in this particular category. And so that number, you know, that particular nuance can skew it a little bit. But this one has to do with the failure to deliver a product. By and large, that was the number one complaint is they ordered something online and they didn't get it. And it's kind of a little bit more concerning because they are health and medical issues. And so they need some of these things. They're expecting to get them. They lead to their health and wellness, and if they're not getting them, and then of course they're not getting their money back either. So if you don't get the product that you need, you still need to turn around and get it someplace else, which makes it even more difficult if you're not getting that money back.
Yeah, very scary on top of, glad that you guys caught on to, had people report it and caught on to it to help jump in and do something about it. Travel coming in at number 7. Now, we kind of saw the restrictions come off on a lot of the COVID stuff that we were stuck with the last couple of years. So I thought this one actually would be a little bit higher up in the list.
So perfect. a perfect observation, I should say, about this one. This was on our list in 2020, and that was mainly about the services. And of course, it makes sense because everything kind of slowed to a halt and the services weren't being provided. So you're going to get those complaints. But as we see travel and tourism start to pick up a little more and more, and everybody's getting back out there and things are opening back up, of course, that brings more opportunity for things to go wrong. And so these complaints really deal with the airlines, car rentals, motel, hotels, reservations, things like that. We've experienced and seen, well, I don't know if you've experienced, but of course we've certainly seen in the news in the past several months how the airlines have had some struggles with making times. But some of this also due to exactly what we just said of there's more people getting out there and doing it. And once you're doing that, there's more opportunity for complaints to come in. And while it's unfortunate that we have to see this back in the top 10, I guess one upside you have to have is the world's opening back up and we're getting out there and using some of these services.
I was thinking the same thing. That's why I think it would be up higher because more people are getting back out there and moving forward. So I think if anything, double check, especially in the travel area and any of these subjects, certainly, but especially if you're traveling. Medical services coming in. This is one that's been on the rise and have seen here and getting more familiar with as it's gone on.
Yeah, again, medical services, number 6, it was on the list last year as well. And this one had a bit of a unique change to it because in 2022, the No Surprises Act went into effect. And that was a federal mandate that required, certain provisions be done by healthcare providers. First one is if you're uninsured, they have to provide a good faith estimate before providing that care. Or if you are out of network and you need emergency services, they can only charge you the in-network prices that you had insurance for. So adding a level of transparency. And that really helped us tailor a little bit of what we were looking with because we partner closely with the Department of Health Services on some of these and how that healthcare is being provided. And also with the Office of Commissioner of Insurance when you're having, whether the insurance company is billing you for things. But outside of that change, the one thing we've always wanted to make sure consumers are aware of is to look at your bill. Look at the services that are being provided and make sure that that's actually what happened. As we've seen in the past couple of years, it would be common to have a COVID test. Are they charging you for a COVID test? Is it 1 test? Is it 2 tests? Is it 3 tests? How much is that test? Or maybe they've charged you for a certain procedure. And you're like, I went in for a hurt ankle and they're charging me for some type of ear test. Maybe things got crossed, accidents happen, but making sure you look at those things and not just paying the amount and assuming that it's right.
Yeah, absolutely. Double check on those things, certainly. And next one, just coming out of Identity Theft Awareness Week not too long ago, is identity theft at the number 5 spot.
At number 5, we had a bit of a decrease of complaints, but it'd be a little misleading because we had an abnormally high number of complaints in 2021. And so once you have that spike, when it comes back down, we level back out to where we had been. And identity theft, doesn't mean that it is on the decline. We have the opportunity to talk each month about all these different ways that people are trying to steal your information to perpetrate identity theft. And so one, we want to make sure we have vigilant awareness of how consumers can protect themselves with it, but also know that DATCP is here as a resource to help recover your identity should you become a victim and suffer a loss. We'll help liaison between your creditors, banks, lenders, things like that to restore it and hopefully get you back on track.
Yeah, such a serious thing that can cause a lot of damage behind the scenes for you and hard to get back once it's out there and released. So definitely take your time and do some research. Make sure you got everything secure. Kind of leads into telecommunications. At number 4 went up just a little bit.
A little bit. And telecommunications deals with your cell phone providers, your internet providers, all of those technologies where they're providing a service to it. And Jeremy, you and I had an opportunity to talk in a different segment about a recent settlement that the FTC had that deals with this exact topic. Are they advertising a certain data speed for your internet and then they're not providing it? We here in Wisconsin had a lawsuit that we worked with a company. And they were doing a very similar. They were promising a certain level of service in rural areas, and they weren't able to provide that service. So if you're out there and you have limited options on who you can get as an internet provider, you want to sign up for the one that looks like the best deal and the best speeds. And when they didn't provide that, DATCP was able to step in and say, you misrepresented what service you could provide. And that resulted in a settlement in which that company is now required to invest $15 million into their infrastructure here in Wisconsin to supplement and actually back up the speeds that they're advertising. So another way the DATCP can both help get the compensation that's owed and prevent future occurrences down the road.
Yeah, so important to report. We talk about it a lot, Michael, on the show about reporting and why it is so important to do so. And there's a great example of it. Number 3, no surprise. All we've heard about is lots of building going on, not enough lumber, not enough service available out there. So I'm happy people reported it, but to me, not so shocking in the top 3 here on home improvement.
Yeah, as we're starting to get back in with some of the things being available, or we're trying to find and do the home improvement project, the biggest issue that we're seeing here is the failure to provide the services. Either they're not providing them on timely. So you sign a contract and says this project's going to be done in 6 months, and 6 months later they haven't even started on it, and then it goes on and on and on. The other one is sometimes they just don't show up at all. You make that down payment, you agree for a certain type of work, and then they're gone. And so, but those are 2 of the more, I would probably say, extreme examples of what's happening. But in whole and in mass, probably the biggest issues we're seeing that are contributing to this being number 3 is, one, we're seeing the tail end of the supply chain issues. And we still, certainly that was a big impact on 2021 as we rolled into the beginning of 22. That was still occurring. So these projects where they certainly have the best of intent, they think they can get them. In reality, those supply chains or those supplies don't show up. You mentioned the lumber is a great example. And so it's not that the contractor is intentionally trying to deceive you. They may very well think they can get it, and then they don't. The other flip side of that is, once the product gets there, who's going to put it up? Who's doing the work? And we've heard about employment shortages for the past year and a half, 2 years. This is a different, or I should say, the same impact, but now you're really needing skilled workers as well. Ones that have the ability to do the work right and make sure that it's going to stay and be safe. So all of those led to a bit of an uptick in our home improvement complaints last year.
Yeah, good one to learn more about, certainly. And at number 2, telemarketing, excuse me, not a surprise here, although you're showing a decrease at number 2 from last year, but still interesting.
It is. It came in at number 2. Last year was number 1. But what's interesting is that these volumes are very similar, are trending in the exact same traction as nationally. We're seeing that the national number is showing a decline. Each states are showing a decline. We're reflective of that. And one of the reasons we think that's happening is the federal government's concerted focus, and they're really locking down on robocalls and telemarketing. And a couple of years ago, the federal government enacted the TRACE Act, which required cell phone carriers or cellular providers to filter out all these incoming robocalls from overseas, or a number that they couldn't verify was authentic. And so what that does is it filters them out before they even get to us. Now, we both know that we still get those calls, and we still get those annoying texts. And but what's nice is most of these cell providers have also created software that helps you identify and say this number is most likely a scam, because even though it's a recognized number, there's other things in this software protocol that show, hey, it's not. So the one thing we do want to say, though, is don't allow these numbers to declining to make you think that there's not still scams taking place, because there absolutely is. And it's very important that consumers report those to us at DATCP so that we have an opportunity to look into them, identify the patterns, and then when we get the chance, we can knock them down to stop the activity.
And finally, moving on the chain for number 1, landlord and tenant issues. Again, not totally a surprise, given, again, we're coming out of what was the roughest time from COVID. So a lot of variables here in this one, but tell us what got it to its number 1 status.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. 2022, there were some programs that were being offered. Some of those programs ended, some of those programs were extended. And so a lot of even confusion as to what was offered, what could landlords be doing, what they couldn't. But even aside from all of that, the number 1 concern was security deposits and an understanding of when they should be returned, both for the tenant and also the landlord. And it's good to remind everyone that after you end a tenancy, the landlord has 21 days to return that security deposit to you. And then of course that brings with, I didn't get it, or what deductions were taken out of, and that ties into making sure you do an inspection, and then that ties into making sure you have an understanding of your lease. And so all those things really feed into why landlord tenant became our number one complaint. But what we do is, this is an area that we have not just a lot of authority over, but we also have a lot of partners. And we work with a lot of civic and social organizations to provide resources where we can't necessarily help, maybe they can. And we also publish a landlord tenant guide that I encourage anyone who is looking to start renting or is even currently renting to get a copy of that at landlordtenant.wi.gov. And that is a great resource to help both landlords and tenants understand what their rights and responsibilities are when operating here in Wisconsin.
Yeah, it's it's a good one. If you've never looked at it before, when I rented, I learned about it after doing these segments, and I was like, "Dang, I should have probably looked at that." It's a great resource. Michael, thank you so much for going through all these. I know we rushed you, but thank you, and thank you for all the work that you've done and sharing the information. I think it's so awesome. You guys not only do interviews with us, but you get out there and share this information across the area, across the state, and again, in the mission of keeping consumers protected and educated.
You said it perfectly, and I really appreciate the opportunity to come out and do exactly what it is we're trying to do. We're trying to get out and share the word. Just let everybody know that we're here and that we're here to help.
All right. Well, we'll catch you next year for the top 10.
I'll be here. Thanks, Jeremy.